Much like Old Yeller, it's time to take the Superado's engine out behind the woodshed and put it down. But can we figure out exactly what happened? Stick around. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the garage, and as always, I like to start out by thanking all the subscribers out there, all the people taking the time to comment, read the comments, comment on other comments, all the new patrons, and of course our sponsors. Thank you, everybody. So, as most of you know, we went to the track last Friday, and well, you guys have been kind of patiently waiting, though I've thrown a couple hints out there that the Superado did not do so well. Now, there was two issues. One issue was kind of weird. It was something having to do with the spark tables pulling torque out, so we weren't getting power. We were going into a weird limp mode that was basically keeping us under 4,000 RPMs. I'm still doing some research on that. I need to get some data from the other modules. I'm having a hard time getting connected to those modules to see what was causing that. But if you go in and look at the tune, you don't really see anything causing that issue. Well, unfortunately, on the second pull, I got a little bit frustrated by it. And after I passed the quarter-mile mark, I just got on her, just throttled it up to see what would happen. And we ran into an issue that directly relates to our VE table not being tuned on the Superado. The Superado was set up in MAF only, but I've talked about it in the past where the volumetric efficiency tables are still at play whenever you're in MAF only. And unfortunately for us, this is a prime example of why we have to go in and adjust those VE tables, because you're going to see in the log where we basically were running 20 pounds of boost without any fuel, and I'll explain to you why. But first, let me load up one of the passes, the one in which you'll see smoke fly out the back as we blew out the rear main seal and got some oil in the cylinders, and we're getting ready to pull the plugs out, and we'll see which cylinders are damaged. Then we'll do a compression test after that before we go out and do a full tear down of the motor, see how much damage was actually done. The thing did get back in the garage under its own power, loaded up under its own power, but it is severely wounded right now, and I don't suspect that this engine block is going to be the one that we go with in the future. Not that that's a bad thing, but as I said, let's take a quick glance at that pass that killed the Superado. As you could hear, no fun was being had on that pass. It was literally just bouncing around at 4K, and I've got it pulled up here. I'll throw it up big screen so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And this is just the HP Tuners log. I'm a little bit peeved at myself because I actually used my old Surface Pro to record this log. And I did not have a very good parameter set. It was just kind of one of those things. I just loaded it up and then turned it on wherever it was time to go and didn't double check and realized that things like I didn't have even EQ ratio command. I had AFR commanded. This was from back whenever I was tuning in AFR back in the day. So we have a bunch of bad data in here, but we have enough good data to kind of see what was going on. Unfortunately, on the first pass, somebody broke down on the track. I shut everything down whenever I came back up. I had lost my wideband. I did not have enough time to restart to see what the AFRs are, but you'll see that the AFRs throughout this portion really weren't an issue until we blew the thing up. So here is our initial launch. We're getting off the line pretty decently. I was holding about a 2,000 RPM stall. We were about 1 PSI a boost at that point in time. Once we come off, we spike up in the boost and we get all the way up to, let's see where we're at here, right where we shift. We made it to first shift, so 5,800 RPMs or so. We're at 20 PSI a boost, what we've been seeing in the past. Nothing surprising there. What happened after that, though, is what was surprising, is that it went into some kind of limp mode. Now, if you look at, I've got it highlighted here, the immediate engine torque command, that is, immediate torque is going to be spark, predicted torque is going to be airflow. So airflow is following our final torque request, but our spark was lagging behind. It did good up to about 360, and then after that it started lagging behind, and we were actually pulling some timing. My guess is we may have hit a spot of knock in there somewhere. I'm not really seeing any right now, but we did end up getting into knock down here, and I initially thought, well, maybe that was also part of the problem, because if you look, there's where the knock comes in. Look at where we're at on our cylinder air mass. We're at 48, 480 milligrams. And so this is the detriment of scaling your injectors or adding auxiliary injectors in there, because we're not properly calculating this air mass. Now, in the original tune file, if we were to go in and look at the spark on the high octane, you can see here where I've stepped this down at 48. Now we're commanding a max of 16 degrees. And then just a couple above that, we max out at 12, 10, 11, 12, which is what this truck generally likes. And then we kind of ramp down into normal areas. So what we've done is taken the entire map and we've compressed it down, and we say, okay, what's our maximum spark that we're seeing, or cylinder air mass that we're seeing? In this case, we do get up to 0.88, but it drops off really quick. So we never see anything below that point, but this is our operational range down in here whenever we're in wide open throttle. This is going to come into play here in a second. After that, you can see where power just falls off. Spark falls off, then we get down into this weird limp mode section. If you watch the blue box here on the Spark Advanced table, it just bounces around a lot. And so it's like hitting an artificial rev limiter. It'd get up to 4,000 drop off, 4,000 drop off, 4,000 drop off. Now, I did see something interesting in this process. I disabled traction control, but not StabiliTrak. StabiliTrak turns itself back on after 35 miles an hour or so anyways, and we're going in a straight line, so StabiliTrak doesn't really have any play at the drag strip. Traction control being the big thing, so we can brake our tires, loose do burnouts, all that fun stuff. So the StabiliTrak light, the one with the swervy lines, came on and stayed on, and I, for the life of me, cannot find any kind of information throughout the manual, not the manual, or the shop manuals for the 2015 Silverados that says, hey, this is what are the conditions, other than there might be something wrong with the electronic brake control module. Thus, I'm trying to pull the codes off of the EBC-M, which my VCX Nano is just being a pain in the butt right now. I'll probably do a video about that later on. I just want to get that information out because we didn't set any check engine lights. There were some check engine lights, but it was stuff that was wrapped up around things like the ABS or the airbag system, some old check engine lights for, MAF correlation, things like that. But during the pass itself, even on the pass in which we let, something let go, we didn't have any check engine lights that popped up. And I went back in and it just had some of the normal stuff as like TCM loss of communications that you get after a read write. So, no clue what was going on there. But that is a different problem. And it could be somewhat related to the final problem. But let's look at the final problem because here's where the motor lets go. This is where I am frustrated and I am finally getting back into it and building boost. The big thing, if we go back here and look, we never build boost. We, get up to -2. So we're not ever breaking atmospheric on this. It's almost like there's no load. But also, if we scrub through here and look, where are you at? Throttle. Okay, right there. The throttle. This one has the SAE version, but the throttle's at 85%. That means the throttle body's wide open, and we are losing RPMs when the throttle body's wide open. So something else is going on there. There may not be enough data on this log to figure that portion of it out. That's not what killed the motor. Here's what killed the motor. So this is where we're getting back into it, and pay attention to our spark graph here, because it's going to be imperative as we build more boost RPMs. Right about here at 13 psi, look at that jump. Okay, we go from 68, 680 milligrams, down to 520, down to 40, down to 24, down to 0. We are at 0 milligrams spark air mass at this point in time. You'll notice something else. Watch our injectors. We're at 3.4 milliseconds right now, 2.5, 1.5, 0.5, 0. Now, what else is going on at this point in time? Well, we're still accelerating. We're still building RPMs. We are still building boost. If we scrub back here, whenever this started, we were at 13 psi. Now we are at 15 and a half whenever it goes out. So we are no longer delivering fuel. We'll get to why this happened. It's very interesting. The thing about it is, right here, we're still rich for a split second. We still had all the fuel going in, including the auxiliary fuel. The auxiliary fuel was probably the only thing that kept this from being catastrophic, because the auxiliary fuel is just dumping loads of fuel in right now, along with the methanol injection. But we keep on scrolling over, 16, 17 psi, we start going lean. We're at 1.05. 18 psi, 1.29 lambda. Super lean, 30% lean at this point in time. That's just 30% lean off of stoic. Technically, we're 30% lean off of power enrichment, so we are 50, 60% lean, and then boom. This is about the time that she let go. Loud pop, lots of smoke, and that's all she wrote. The injector shut off. We kept on accelerating. Now, mind you, had we not had auxiliary fueling on this, it would have been a fuel cut, and it would have pulled all the power out. May have still done some damage. You don't want a fuel cut like that. A spark cut, is not going to damage you, but having a fuel cut under boost could still be something that destroys something. But let's look at our volumetric efficiency table, and it'll all start to make sense. So here's our volumetric efficiency table. I'm going to convert this over to a 1 bar so you can see what the default VE table for this vehicle looks like in here. Here it is. This is the default VE table. This is a stock. We never touch volumetric efficiency. We're running 20 psi, which means that we're at 2.5 bar or so. So we come in here, and I have a 3-bar pressure sensor on here, so it's not an issue where we've maxed that out. But if we look at our 3-bar range, there's something interesting happening. Look down here. Look at all these negative numbers. Negative volumetric efficiency. Look at where it happens at 44 to 4600, right at the line. The brake's at 4500 RPMs here. If we go back and scrub through this, 4400, 4500 RPMs. Look at where we're still at on our cylinder air mass. 4600, and then by 4800, we're to 0 cylinder air mass. And so we are now in this range. If we were to look at our pressure ratio, we're at 2.04 pressure ratio, which means we are right here in this giant block of negative numbers. So now the VE table is saying that the engine has no air in it, shut all the fuel off. Even though we are MAF only, you have to remember that even though we're MAF only, we have it set up for high speed. The dynamic airflow tables on these systems are both working off of MAF and volumetric efficiency as a sanity check. And it's always going to default back to volumetric efficiency. There was such a huge disparity between what the MAF was reading and what the volumetric efficiency was that the ECM freaked out, flipped this over to the VE table and said, okay, at this point in time, we are having no cylinder air mass. We are below 0 on volumetric efficiency. The engine's no longer breathing. shut off the fuel. At 20 psi, we turn the fuel off to the primary injectors. Wow. So if this is not a reason for you to go in, even if I had just taken 10 seconds to open this up, rescale it, and see that there was negatives, and came down here and said, okay, let's fix this. I'll put 3,000 down here. Boom, blast it out, and then just come in here and do this. Literally, if I'd done this much, where we just kind of did something like that, calculated it, and built the ugliest map on the face of the planet, that wouldn't have happened. Now, would it have been within the realm of possibility that we still shifted over to the volumetric efficiency map? Yeah, there could have been a chance that the disparity was big enough that it would say, hey, we have an issue here. The predicted volumetric efficiency, where if you go out and look, and this is, I haven't tested this, but if you go out and look at underneath general, you have a spark air mass blend that blends current air mass, which is going to probably be your mass airflow, versus your predicted, next two steps of predicted, which will never be off of airflow. They'll always be off of volumetric efficiency. So if this were zeroed out, if we had zeroed this out to say only use the current air mass, maybe it wouldn't have happened. That's something we'll have to test later on. But we're going to have to test it in a way that protects us from grenading another motor. To be honest with you, you could have the most built motor on the face of the planet. It probably would not have survived this. The fact that this thing survived to the point where it still turns over, fires up and runs, is beyond me. We got lucky in that aspect. As I said, I drove it back to the trailer, loaded it up on the trailer, got it off the trailer, and we are getting smoke through the top end of the motor. We are seeing smoke coming out the breather on the valve covers, but we're getting a lot of oil drippage out of the transmission bell housing, which indicates we blew the rear main seal out. So it'll be interesting to dive in there. Keep your eyes peeled on future videos as we do an autopsy on this. We'll pull the plugs out, do a compression test, look at the plugs, see if we can get an indication of what cylinders failed, do a compression test, see if we're maintaining any pressure. It's one of those situations where if we slowly build pressure over time, that we've got ring damage. If we can't build any pressure, we've got a valve damage somewhere. Who knows? My guess is probably ring damage, but it'll be interesting to check it out. So there you have it. The Superado is down, but it's not out. We are far from done with this thing. If anything, we're just going to come back with a more potent platform in which we can achieve the results that we want to achieve. We've got a little work to do. It's not the end of the world. We kind of expected this to happen. If you were at the live show, anything like that, I've already been talking about the fact that I did not expect this engine to make it through the weekend. We're throwing 20 PSI at a stock bottom end block. I'm rather surprised it was not a catastrophic failure. So I'm very interested to see what exactly did happen and see if we can get any insight other than we know what caused it, but how bad was it? So that being said, I'm going to get back to work. I've got a lot to do on this next couple weeks. Keep your eyes peeled as we go through, tear the plugs out. We're going to borescope in through the plugs to take a look at the inside of the cylinders before we pull the heads off, things like that, just to have some cool content tearing into a motor that is pretty much hurt. Then we'll get into what we're going to do for the next steps for the Superado, whether or not we're going to go with a built L83 or if we're going to go ahead and go with bigger displacement. There's a lot of different schools of thoughts out there, so I'll get some of your guys' feedback and input. Make sure you check out the website, goatropegarage.com. The new hats are in, and man, are these good-looking hats. Wow, at this point in time, there may not be very many left on the website, but I said once we sold out of these, I would get some more ordered up, so check it out. I know some of you guys have been looking for flat bills and stuff like that, but these are Richardson Flex Fits. These are high quality, none of that cheap crap that you might be getting elsewhere, and they're very comfortable. Super excited about having mine. Also, we have the live training session this Friday. If you're interested, there's still a couple seats left on that. It's on the 13th. Check out the website, goatropegarage.com. I'm going to get back to work trying to figure some of this stuff out. You get back to work with tuning, and you know the drill. Thanks for stopping by the garage, and always be tuning.